Hello and welcome to Tech Tool India. In this video, I'm going to explain all about Laravel 9 REST APIs. I'm going to explain CRUD operation with the REST APIs. I'll show you with the examples. You need a basic setup for installing Laravel 9. If you want to know how to install Laravel 9, you can click on the I button and check out the video. I have put a link in the description as well. So without wasting any time, let's get started. I have installed a fresh Laravel 9. As you can see, the current version is Laravel 9.6. So in this video, I'm going to take an example. Let's call it a post, which will accept two parameters, title and the description. So to do that, let's open this in our code editor. So it is a fresh installation. I need to configure the database first. Let's go into the database. I have already created a database called Laravel API. So I just update this database. What next? We need to create a model which will accept a title and a description for post. So let's create it. You can create it by running php artisan make model, call it as a post and give it a -m to create a migration for this. As soon as you create this, you'll see this has created a file for migrations. If you go to the migrations, you'll see this create post migration. Here what we need to take, we have a field called title, give it as a string, name it as a title. The second field which we are taking is a description for the post. I'm taking this as an example. You can take any other fields which you want. Alright, so we have made our migration ready. What next? Let's migrate it and see if it is migrated successfully. By running a command php artisan migrate, it will migrate our database. Yes, it's been migrated. Let's go into our database and check if all the tables are there. Yes, you can see this post table which includes title and the description. Alright, now let's go to the post, open the post model. Let's close this, go to the app, models and post.php. Here we need to define our fillable property in order to use a mass assignment. So I'll use protected $fillable and define two properties, title and description. Alright, so we have our property defined as a fillable here, the two fields which we want to mass assign. Next, we want to create a controller. For that, we need to run a command php artisan make controller. I'm going to create a folder called API for all the APIs and just creating post controller. And I can pass a model post. So the controller has been created successfully. If you go to the HTTP controllers, you'll find API folder. Inside it, you'll see a post controller and our post model is already used in this controller. Alright, so we have defined our post model, we have created our controller. The very next thing is to define, and this post controller comes with all the basic CRUD function, which is like an index function, create function, store, show, edit, update, and destroy. So these are the CRUD operations which we are going to see today. So let's define these routes in our APIs. Let's go to our routes api.php. For this tutorial, I'm not going to use any authentication. It's just a simple tutorial without any authentication. So I'm going to define this route and I'm going to call it API resource. I'm name it as posts and call its controller. This should be fine. Alright, so if you want to see what routes we are available, so you can just write in a command php artisan route list. If you see this API routes, you'll see all the API/posts are available here inside API. You see these are the redirected to this API post controller function, respective functions. So the routes are all set for the APIs. So the next thing we want to test these routes. So I'm going to use Postman for our HTTP client testing. You can use any other HTTP client or you can install extension on VS Code. You can use that, but for now I'm going to use Postman for testing all our HTTP client requests. So I'm just going to clear this, and next let's go to the Postman. This is the Valet URL which I have set up for our project. If you go to this, you will see Laravel API.test. This is a local URL I have set up. On this URL, if I just write this API/posts, if I hit this URL now, you'll see you are getting a 200 response, but you're not getting any of the data. The reason being, we are not returning anything here. So just to sake of our preview, like it's working or not, I'm just going to return a JSON response here, return response JSON, and in that I'm going to pass status true and posts would be just a blank array. Let's go ahead and hit our API again. You see you'll have a status true, post is equals to blank. So our APIs are working. The next thing is to create a post and then get the response. So I'm going to add a new tab here. Just copy this post, use this. So if you go to our route, you'll see to create a post, the endpoint is API/post, but the method is post. So it will hit our post.store function. Let's make it a post, and in a body, let's pass a JSON object here, which includes a title. This is first post, and a description. This is first description. This is first post description. I'm taking as example. So now we are using our post method to store the post. Let's go into our function. To validate it, I'm going to create a request here by just running a command php artisan make request store post request. So if you go to the app http requests folder, you'll see this store post request. I'm just going to authorize it always true, and inside a rule, what we want to put, we want a title. Title should be a required field. So this will be required, and the maximum value for this is 70. Next thing is the description. Description would be a required field. Alright, so we have created our request. So to store this, instead of request, I'm going to use this store post request. As I just use this store post request, it includes here on the top. You need to use this as app http request and store request, then you can use here directly on the store function. So what this is going to do, this is going to validate all the requests coming to this function, and if validation fails, it will return a validation error. To see our validation, I just added this store post request in the store function and dumped all the data. Let's see if this is working or not. Let's go in our Postman. So before sending this API, we need to add few headers in order to send a JSON data and get a response in a JSON. So we'll add a header. Call is accept. Put it as a JSON, and contain type, also the contain type of this request would be JSON. So the request and response should be in the JSON. That's why I'm sending this accept and contain type as a header. In a body, I have just put this like only title. I'm not sending the description. If I send this response request, you'll see in the response the description field is required. That means our validation is working properly. Let's add a description here. Give it a comma here and add a description. Test post only. So I just added a random description, and let's see if it is working now. Yeah, it's working now. If you just preview this, I have dumped the title, whatever we are getting on the request. So we are sending the title and description, and that's exactly what we are dumping in the controller. Let's go in our controller. As you can see, we have just dumped this data. Let's store this data by post create, give it as a post is equals to post create, and whatever we are getting in the request. And in order to return this, just return response JSON and give it a array, call it status true, and post is equals to post which we have created, and here let's pass a 200 as its success response. And you can add another parameter called message and give it a post created successfully. Alright, let's go to our Postman. Now let's send this. You see, we got this status as true, post created successfully, and with all the post data. Alright, so we are getting this response. Let's go ahead and update our update function. So in update also we are going to use store request, store post request as a store validation, and we are using this post. So what we are going to do, just update it, whatever the parameter we are getting, request of all, and just returning the same response as we have returned in a create. Just instead of create, let's say updated successfully. Let's create a new tab. I'm just going to duplicate this tab, and this time I have to add a put method here and pass the ID of post. If you go our root list, you'll see to update this we need to put API /post/post. Post stands for post ID, so it will automatically associate this ID with the post model. So as we know, the ID is 1, so I'm just passing this a 1, and we don't want to change anything in header. Let's go into the body and say it updated and call it updated. Alright, let's send this request and see what we get in the response. As you see, we got the post updated successfully, and if you see, the ID is 1 and we got our title and description updated. So this is working as well. Let's go to the destroy function, as this will just delete the response. So you'll say like post pointing to delete, and then return the response. And instead of passing the post, just pass this message, and to delete it, method should be delete and the URL should be the same. Let's go and duplicate this tab. We don't want to pass anything in the body. Method would be delete here. Let's send this. As you see, post deleted successfully. So we have completed this create, update, delete. Let's create another one. We have created this here. Now let's update this post here. Let's take a post function, post variable, and just pull all the post here and put it here in the variable. Alright, if you now hit the get API for the post, you'll see you have post. Let's create another one here and see if we are able to see that in a get response. You'll see we have 2 posts available. Alright, so I think we have covered the basic CRUD operation of APIs. It's very simple. What we have did till now, I'll summarize it quickly. We have created a post model with the title and description. We have created the migration, migrated the table, and then we have created this post controller with all the basic CRUD functions, and we have used this index function. In a store function, we have created this store post request, which will validate our data with the title is required and maximum 70, and the description will required in this. And then we have defined our API resource here in the api.php file, and we have taken all the function here in the post controller, and in a store function we have just stored the data and written the response. Similarly, we did on update, we just updated the data and returned the response, and similarly on the delete. India. In this video, I'm going to explain you about Laravel API's authentication. For authentication, we are going to use Laravel Sanctum in this video. In Laravel 9, Laravel Sanctum comes inbuilt with Composer. If you go to the composer.json for Laravel 9, you can see this Laravel Sanctum is required as a dependency. But if you are using any old version, what you need to do, you need to go to Laravel Sanctum documentation and you just need to install this dependency via Composer. And after installing this dependency via Composer, you just need to publish this service provider. After that, you need to run a migration which will create a table called personal access token. This table is used to store the token for each user. Laravel Sanctum allows to create multiple tokens for each user, by which we can define the scope of the user for that particular token. So let's get started and see how we can use this Laravel Sanctum in Laravel 9. We have already installed Laravel 9 APIs and made the CRUD operation. If you go to the APIs, we have create a post APIs get API, and if I hit this, I'll get this to response of the post. So right now it's an open API. There is no middleware for authentication. Anyone can access this API. In order to write the middleware or authentication for these APIs, we need to create an authentication controller in order to create a token for each user. For that, what we'll do, we'll go to the APIs. We'll create one controller for authentication of the APIs by running the command php artisan make controller API will make auth controller for all the API's authentication routes. Let's create this. If you see this creates auth controller, we need to do now we need to define two routes for register and sign in. So we'll create one register route, call it auth register, and give it a controller auth controller. So we need to use this auth controller. You can see I have imported this auth controller via auto import. You can use this auth controller on the very top of the page and use this class. Next, we need to define which function we want to use for this. So we will call it create user. We have defined our auth register route. The next is auth login route, and we'll call it login user. So we have defined these routes. Next, we need to create this controller function. Let's go to the controller and let's define create user request. So we'll just simply put it as a request and request parameter. Let's create this by creating a function named create user, which will accept request as a parameter. All the form requests will come here. What we need to do next here, we need to validate the request. In order to validate, what we'll do, we'll create a validate user, and what we'll write here, validator, and as soon as I use this validator, you can see on top of controller we have validator, use the validator class, and I'll pass here the data. Data is all the data which is coming through request. The rules, next we need to write the rules. Rules will be, we required a name parameter which is required. There should be an email parameter which again is a required parameter, and it should be an email. Next is it should be a unique of users table. Column should be email, and since it's a create request, we don't want to accept any IDs here. Alright, so we have written this for email. The next should be a password, always required for a user, so we'll just simply put it as a required. Next, if this validation will fail, we need to return a response of error with JSON. So we'll simply check this validate user. If this fails, so we need to return a response, JSON response, will simply follow our response, like status should be a false, message should be validation error, and there should be all errors in array, like validate user errors. So this will hold all the errors, and the response code will be 401. So this will be our validation. Before moving ahead, we need to put all this inside a try catch block. I'll just move quickly this in a try block so that we can catch the response and return proper, handle proper catch if we found anything. So the message will be, whatever the catch message will be here, we'll simply use that get message, and we don't want this. Alright, so we have validated our input. Next, what we need to do, we need to create a user. So to create a user, what we are going to use, the user model. Inside this, we have to pass all the parameter which is coming through request. So we have a name, email, and password. So the password should be used as a hashed password. So for that we are using hash make, and the value will be the request of password. So this will create the user. So in order to use this user, we need to import the user model, and in order to use this hash, we need to import this hash facade here. So we have imported hash, we have imported users, we have imported the validators. So 3 imports will do all this here. Once the user is created, what we need to do, we need to return the user with API token. In order to create the token with Sanctum, as Sanctum is inbuilt in Laravel 9, we need to use has API token in user model. So let's open, and if you go to the user model, you see this has API tokens. This is a trait clause based on the Laravel Sanctum. What it does, it actually opens a function called create token, which will create a token for this particular user. So the next thing, we need to return a response. We'll simply copy the above code for response and update it based on, like, it's a 200 response. Stated should be true, message should be user created successfully, and the token should be, now we need to return a token. So what we'll do, we'll use this user and then we'll use our create token method, create token, and in that we need to pass what kind of token it is, and it should be a plain text token. Alright, so this will return a token. Let's save this. Let's go to our, let's test like how this function should be working. Let's test this function. To test this, we need to use this auth register in APIs. So we'll create a new, we'll use a post method, we'll put this, copy the URL from here, paste it here. After API, we need to use auth register. Inside a form data, what we need to do, inside body we need to pass the form data, and here we are passing the name, email, and password would be, alright. So we have this auth register APIs to test. Let's send this request. As we can see, we got the status as true, user got created successfully, and we received a token. Next, what we need to do, we need to test if this particular user can be authenticated by using this token. For that, if you go to the post, right now it's an open API, anyone can access. But as soon as I apply a middleware here, middleware for auth and auth using Sanctum. So as soon as I apply this and go to this API and hit it, you see this is calling at unauthenticated and giving it response 401 unauthorized. For this, we need to pass a bearer token authentication, and in that, if I put this token, I just copy this token and put inside our bearer token. Let's see if this is going to work for us. It's working. So as you can see, as soon as you apply this middleware auth Sanctum, the token is required. If you do not pass the token, it will give you authentication error. As soon as you put the token, it will pass the request and give you the response. So it's very simple. As we did on the register, we need to create a login user function in auth controller in order to create a token while login. So what we need to do, login the user, will create the function, name it login user, use the similar request as a parameter, use the try catch block as above, copy this response type here in the catch block and put it here. In the login, again we need to validate a user. So what we'll do here, we just copy the same validation and just remove this name parameter from here, because in login we just require only email and the password. If there is any validation error, this will happen. In order to check a login credential, what we need to do here, we need to use auth attempt. By using auth attempt, if there is a invalid credential, it will give you a false response. So what we are going to use here, we'll check if auth attempt give a false response, we need to return a response with the error of wrong username and password or email and password. So what we'll do, we will only take email and password. So here we need to pass an array of email and password. So this will take only email and password, and if this attempt fails, and then we need to return a response saying username or password does not match. Right, so we need to give this response, and if it pass, then what we need to do, we need to find the user, which will be email, should be the request of email, and this should be first. If it is passed, like if authenticated, then we need to create a token again. So this similar response will be returned after authentication. So what we'll do here, we'll return this user logged in successfully, and then we'll return the API token. So this should work for login. Let's test this as well. Let's go to our Postman, duplicate this request tab, and inside a body we need to pass email and password. Instead of register, we need to test our login. Let's send this. Great, this is also working. Let's test this token. Go to our first, remove this, send this, it gives you the unauthenticated, put it our token, send the request, it gives you the response. So that's it. That's how we can create a Sanctum authentication for the APIs. It's really very easy. We just need a route for registering and creating an API token for those users, and wherever we want to put this Sanctum authentication middleware, it will just apply the Sanctum authentication middleware and restrict any open user to access your APIs. Hope this video will be informative for you. If you found this video informative, please do subscribe our channel, like this video, share this video with your friends. If you face any issue while integrating this Sanctum in your project, Please do let us know on the comment section. Till the next video, keep watching, keep learning. Thank you for watching.